This is internationally best-selling indie author Michael Brent Collings inviting you to join me at bestsellerlife.com/DCR to unlock my tips, tricks, and hacks for a successful writing career. So go to bestsellerlife.com/DCR and kickstart your writing adventure today.
This is Daniel.
And this is Krebs.
This is Alton.
And I am Matai.
And you're listening to Dungeon Crawlers Radio, the greatest geek podcast out there. Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Dungeon Crawlers Radio. But this one's a little special. Because it's the holiday season, we decided to do something unique, something we've never done before. Now, every other episode you've ever heard from Dungeon Crawlers has been with us collectively as one talking about a subject, and then we discuss it and wrap it up in this nice little bow and send it out to you. However, this time we've decided to do a serial episode. Now, this episode is going to be a little different. Now, what we're going to be doing is I will be kicking off the discussion, and I will be talking to you as the listener, giving you my thoughts and opinions on this topic. And then, once I've wrapped that up, we'll release this episode. And the next episode will be another one of our hosts listening to this episode and then responding. And then, of course, I'll make some comments here and there as I'm kicking it off. And then that'll bounce to the next host. And finally, the next host. And then I will wrap it all up at the end of that final episode with the last host that is deciding to collectively put all this together. And so you will have 4 unique and very interesting episodes where we are feeding off of one another, but not within the same room or at the same time. Now, generally when we're talking and conversing on topics, we are just feeding off of one another and we're getting excited and we're just really pulling together an amazing episode for you, our listeners. However, this is going to be a little different. This is going to be a very interesting experiment to see how well this comes together. Now, we threw out a lot of different topics and ideas that we wanted to talk about, and there are a lot of really good ideas as to what we could do with this episode. Now, these will collectively be minisodes. They're not going to be as long as our traditional episodes. They'll be anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. So a lot shorter because we're collectively giving you a larger one over time. But it will still be a great series of episodes and something that I think will really be fun for us to do this holiday season. Now, because it is the holiday, I wanted to do something different. I had this fantastic idea of what was the very first film that you saw that really, anchored you into your fandom or your geekdom. And that's the idea I was going to run with. But then I got a curveball of an idea came to me. And I think I'm going to run with this one. And then the guys are going to have to follow me up with this. And it's playing off of the holiday season. Now, there are a lot of various tales regarding Christmas, especially about Father Christmas, how Santa Claus became Santa Claus. Santa Claus is Coming to Town, a classic Rankin Bass film, was created just giving us that information. We also have these various other stories out there, like Claus, that's currently on Netflix, that gives us another telling of that. We also have the Santa Claus. We have so many other fantastic stories surrounding Saint Nick and the man, the myth, the legend. And so I kind of wanted to focus on that and talk about where it is and why is it that we love myths, these stories about mystical creatures that we find so fascinating. Yes, You've heard me talk about dragons all the time. They are my go-to mythical creature. You have some people that love mermaids. You have others that love hydras. You have others that love unicorns and pegasi, as well as minotaurs and ogres and cyclops. And the list goes on. Dwarves, elves. It is fascinating how these various mythical beings are such a huge part of pop culture, geek culture, nerd culture, whatever you want to call it. It is entrenched within our universe. Now, the wonderful thing about Santa Claus, Saint Nick. Now, if you're Jewish or of another faith that doesn't believe in Santa Claus or Christmas, that's fine. We totally honor and respect your traditions. But I'm not going to dive into Christianity or anything like that, or really where the myth of Santa Claus comes from, but more, I want to focus on why is it? Why is it that we love these stories? Why is it that we love the story of Santa Claus, of a mystical being that somehow transports himself all around the world on a sleigh pulled by 8 reindeer, sometimes 9 if you believe, or want to add Rudolph, or in some cases Chet from the Santa Claus series, and can do it in one single night. Now, yes, I do believe that there are things out there that talk about how he's able to, do it by going around the world in a specific way because of the time zone. There's another one where it's magical. It's magic that allows him to do that, where he has some way to bend and warp space and time. And these are the things that's fascinating about this one individual that delivers toys to boys and girls around the world. Now, it is very interesting to me that the story generally starts out as an individual, a saint that created toys for boys and girls, and it brought such joy and happiness. That person became something more. There are other tales of it or versions of it where it is a title that is handed down from person to person throughout the years and the generations. There's another one where they are bestowed this mantle of immortality, and it allows them to live beyond their means, beyond their lives, much like the elves that build their toys have long lifespans. There are, other various stories surrounding Saint Nick, Santa Claus, like we see in the Santa Claus movie with Tim Allen, where, if someone passes away, you put on the coat and you become the man, the myth, the legend. It's, again, I find it fascinating how this works, and it slips into a lot of our belief systems and ideologies. I mean, even Jim Butcher put Santa Claus into his Dresden series. He's a type of fae. And not only that, he's part of the winter court. And when he is not delivering toys to boys and girls, he is a hunter. And I find that fascinating that we can weave all of these stories about one individual and make it into something fantastical. This evening, we were watching a film, the film Claws on Netflix, my children and I, and we very much enjoyed it. And it was definitely a very interesting retelling where it wasn't really Claus that created the myth and the story. It was a mailman that was just trying, that it was from a very rich family, was slacking off, and his dad exiled him to this place, and so he could get back, he had to have 6,000 letters posted with postage paid on it so that he could come back. But through trying to get back, he ends up taking a town that is just, they hate each other. It's like the Hatfields and McCoys. you know, and they're just attacking each other on a daily basis. But through small acts of kindness, one by one, he changes the heart of this town. And he changes the heart of Claus. Claus was a man that fell in love with a woman. He was a woodsman. And he fell in love with this woman, and they married, and they planned to have children. And so he built this home and was building all these toys, waiting for the children that were to come, that sadly never did. And eventually his wife passed away, and he was alone. And then this individual came along and then started bringing him back to life. He started finding joy and happiness, and he delivered all these toys to these children in this town, and then it started becoming more and more towns. It was just fascinating. Again, a very similar story with the same mystical aspects, but not delivered in the same way we always have known. Like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Again, another fantastic Rankin Bass film. We already see Santa set in his ways. He's got his elves that build the toys in his workshop. He has the reindeer that fly, and we see Frosty the Snowman, voiced by Burl Ives. We see that Santa later on in his life. But if you pull back, same Rankin Bass, we have Santa Claus is coming to town. This is about a baby that is dropped off to the Kringles, a group of elves that raise him. And then he sets out to deliver their toys, because they build toys to the village, and things don't go so well. There's a Burgermeister that hates toys and happiness, and so there's just a lot of things that roll through that story where eventually he delivers toys to boys and girls, not only in that village, but around the world. And it comes to the point where it's almost the end of his life, and he's granted this mantle of immortality because of the good deeds he's done. And it continues on his story and his life. And so I wonder, are there any other stories of Saint Nick, of Santa? I mean, we know there are dark versions, the opposite of Santa, which is Krampus. But are there any other stories out there that come to mind when you think of Santa Claus? I know there's the Christmas Chronicles. I believe it's the Christmas Chronicles that has Kurt Russell in it playing Santa Claus, and he's a little bit more mischievous than most Santa Clauses we're used to. Tim Allen's version of the Santa Claus is a classic and one that I love. It's one of my favorites. We see Santa Claus depicted in A Christmas Story, up high on top of this giant mountain, and the kids scream when they see him, and he tells the boy in that story, "You'll shoot your eye out," and then pushes him with his boot, and he goes sliding down to the bottom. So, sometimes Santa always isn't viewed in these films as that wonderful, magical individual. Sometimes, it is what it is. It's a person that is playing Santa Claus, or it's a person that we see dressed up that's sitting in a mall. But he still carries the same hope. We all see Santa Claus as a symbol of hope, of a symbol of joy and happiness in a time that is cold and bitter and lonely sometimes. So again, stepping back, I have to ask the question, have any of you ever ran a game, like an RPG game, where it has been Christmas themed? Is there any board games that you have played that particularly have a Santa Claus theme? Or is Santa, or Saint Nick, Father Christmas, whatever you want to call him, more of a mystical being that you have reverence for, even as you become an adult? Do you have reverence for this character, for this being, this person that somehow, over the years, the centuries, the decades, whatever you want to believe, continues to bring joy and happiness to each and every one of us. That no matter what, every Christmas, we find joy and happiness in the man in the big red suit. And no matter who you are, how old you are, he is a symbol to all of us to find joy in even the darkest times, to come closer to those we love and respect and care about, and to find moments where we can share a gift, whether it's physical, emotional, or intangible, with someone else. I think honestly that is the greatest joy of any myth. The greatest gift that any myth can give is relating something, giving a gift to someone. Even Aesop's tales, or even Roman, Egyptian, Norse, and Greek mythology have always taught us something of the human condition. I believe that is what makes things so magical with myths and legends. And I believe when we boil it down to Santa Claus, to Father Christmas, simply the greatest lesson we can learn is to find peace and happiness and connect with those we love and care about in one way or another. So with that said, this is the first of 4 episodes that will be coming out with myself and our team, and we hope you enjoy it, and we'll see where this crazy series of episodes ends up. But, as always, we wish you happy holidays. With that said, we'll catch you next time.
What happens when modern magic, high-tech weaponry, and an unstoppable dragon collide? Find out in the epic audiobook of A Dragon's Fate, brought to life by Daniel and Krebs. This Whitney Award finalist novel will pull you into a pulse-pounding world where a secret cabal battles for power, and a dragon could bring everything to an explosive end. Don't just hear the story. Feel the magic, the danger, and the action. Get ready for a ride you won't forget. Grab your copy of A Dragon's Fate, now available on Audible.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find us.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.